Hello, everybody, and welcome to another one of our Moving Forward series at LAPS. My name is JJ McMurtry. I'm Dean of Liberal Arts and Professional Studies at York University, and thank you again so much for joining us. A special welcome to our guest panelist, Jay Singer, and thank you also to our host, Sean Karaj. You'll be hearing more from them both shortly. I'd like to now acknowledge the land that we are on. As this meeting is virtual, and because of that, we are not all actually gathered on the same space. I want to acknowledge that York's land acknowledgement may not be representative of the territories upon which you are currently on. And I would ask that if that's the case, that each one of you take the responsibility to acknowledge the traditional territory that you are on and its current treaty holders. I myself am situated in the area known as Takaranto, and so gratefully acknowledge my presence on this land and the land of York University. As a member of the York University community, I recognize that many Indigenous nations have longstanding relationships with the territories upon which York University campuses are located that precede the establishment of York University. York acknowledges its presence on the traditional territory of many Indigenous nations. The area known as Takaranto has been caretaken by the Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat. It is now home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities. We acknowledge the current treaty holders, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. This territory is subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to peaceably share and care for the Great Lakes region. So welcome again to our guest panelist, Jay Singer, and to everybody joining us on Zoom to the next chapter in our Moving Forward webinar series. During this panel, we'll hear how Jay led discount car and truck rentals through the brunt of the COVID-19 pandemic in early 2020. If at any time you need help with this experience or have questions about the content, please feel free to click on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and our team is here and ready to help you. So that's enough from me. I'd like to hand things over to Associate Dean Sean Karaj, who will now lead the discussion. Thanks so much, Sean, and welcome.
Thanks, JJ. And welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us this afternoon for the latest in our Moving Forward series. I'm really excited to welcome our guest today. We've got Jay Singer with us. Hey, Jay, are you there?
I'm here. How are you?
All right. Great.
Hey,
so Jay, you are currently the president at 12 Strings Consulting and the former president and CEO of Discount Car and Truck Rentals.
Yes, correct.
And you're also a graduate of our English program with a Bachelor of Arts in English. So I'm hoping that our conversation will kind of illuminate what your experience has been like leading a significant business in this important sector during COVID, and also have a bit of a conversation about liberal arts and where that education led you in terms of your career.
We love it.
And for those of you out in the audience, as JJ said, we've got a question and answer tool just at the bottom of the screen. So please feel free to start posting your questions in there, and I'll pull from them as we go along in the discussion. So why don't we just start with the pandemic and the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic nearly a year ago in March. Can you give us a sense about what the early pandemic looked like in your sector? What were some of the immediate effects that you felt?
Yeah. So, like everybody, really in any business, you didn't really know what this was. And I'm going to go back to early February, even late January, where you started to hear whispers of cases coming, growing, and also people changing their travel plans. What I want the audience to, it's very important to know is that discount, and this is a great thing that helped us, is maybe 2% of discount's business is airport driven. We're off airport rentals. We're into all kinds of, to insurance companies, to movie and film businesses, all kinds of things, logistics people. So that being said, we do have off airport locations. So we were watching very carefully our reservations, and we were seeing, in comparison to last year, is it more, is it less? Are we seeing cancellations? And that was the earliest way we could see what was going on. And I attribute the evening the NBA said we need to shut down. That's where it really, I think, blossomed in the world that, okay, this is very real. And we started to see reservations at their airports drop, and then we started to see, we do a lot with the movie and film business. They were telling us about a week or two later they're going to shut down productions across, mainly on and across the country, but Toronto and Vancouver being the two biggest areas. That's when it got very real, and we had to react fast.
I think this is like really important for people to hear. So when we think about the disruptions that occurred at the beginning of the pandemic, the shutdown of air travel, closure of schools, the shutdown of the entertainment industry, there are all of these, I guess, ripple effects, because there are all kinds of other businesses that are connected to those sectors. So how did you respond at that initial stage?
So the first thing we did, and again, our business it shrank much after my major competitors because there's so much about the airports. So we were maybe 4 weeks behind them. But the first thing we had to do was we had to cancel fleet, because really your whole world came about making the tough decisions for cash conservation. Right? We don't know how bad this thing is. We don't know where it's going to go, how bad it's going to be. We got to conserve our cash as much as possible. And if we're seeing lower demand, we got to cancel car orders. And that was, I mean, hats off to all the car manufacturers, every single one, because we bought from everybody. They were amazing to deal with, completely understood. You're literally calling one after another. Yeah, can you cancel 2,000? You cancel 6,000 cars. You cancel 3,000 cars. And they're like, okay, yeah, no, we get it. We'll do it. We just had to deal with stuff that was already built, but maybe not delivered to us yet. And we were good about that. We said, hey, we get it. You're canceling thousands and thousands. The hundreds we'll take in. We'll park them somewhere for now. So that was the first big step. Very quickly realized, we got to thin up the numbers at the office, at our head office. I got it. By the way, when I talk like this, I want it to be really clear, and this is for any promising business person watching us today, is when I'm talking me or us, it's like I want to give so much credit to my senior leadership team and everyone, all of their people, human resources, finance, IT, operations, my brother Barry, marketing, unbelievable dedication we had from it. Just like, yeah, we need to do this. Let's do it. So cancel the cars. Then we had to hook up well over 100 people. I think within 48 hours, we got over 100 people hooked up to work from home and keep doing their jobs, because you still have to collect money and pay bills and all that stuff. Then the hard part came in, which was, okay, we're now advancing to kind of mid to late March or April. We need to start temporarily closing locations, shortening office hours at locations. And the hardest thing, which we've never had to do in our 40-year history, is massive layoffs. And we did it. And yeah, it had to be done. It had to be done. People understood. There was no revolution about it. Everyone got it, and we weren't the only ones doing it. But that hurt. That's not who Discount is, But we did it. And I guess as we get further down the path here, thankfully, by June, most of that was reversed. We were bringing almost everyone back. Stores reopened and all that. But those are the big main things we have to do to conserve cash.
So at the immediate outset, you have a kind of crisis, right? A sudden sudden collapse of business out of the blue. But of course, the COVID response for so many businesses wasn't just, the immediate outbreak in March, the announcement of the cancellation of the NBA season. Your business and other businesses have had to continue. So how did your response to COVID evolve as the pandemic was prolonged much longer than I think people thought initially?
Yeah, and that great question, because we had to respond because and we were lucky because automotive rental was deemed an essential business. So thankfully we can keep, we may be 50, 60, 70% down for a month or whatever, but we still have business to do, and I was thankful for that. Right away, what are the safety measures we have to do? Okay. And the early days too, when you wanted to order masks, it wasn't easy to go find 10,000 masks or whatever. So, okay, go get the masks, everybody. Like I said, get these people working from home. We don't want anyone coming into the building of head office that does not absolutely need to be here. More gloves, more Purell, which again, that was a hard to come by thing back in April. It was like, so we did the best we could, and we, thankfully we've been around a long time. We know a lot of people, but it was the PPE stuff that we had to really jump on fast, so our staff and customers felt comfortable. On our website, we had to, as quickly as we could, lay out how we're disinfecting the car now. Like, we always prided ourselves on clean cars and trucks that we rented out, but here's the 5 more steps we're doing, and just giving people confidence that please don't be scared to come to work, and I could speak as of September 1st when we still own Discount. I mean, I think we had 1 COVID case among 180 locations, 1,300 staff, 1 case. And that was, yeah, I don't know if we're lucky or smart or whatever, but that was something.
So in addition to safety protocols, PPE, I'm imagining the business had to change as well. Like the market for car and truck rentals in July and August of 2020 probably didn't look the same as it did in 2019.
It didn't. So again, the real changes, I think my industry started seeing really big hits in February of 2020. We didn't start feeling it till late March of 2020. April was the worst month. Like, we just lost a ton of money in April. It was a bloodbath. But things started coming back to normal a little bit. People started getting okay, and I will say this: people, the confidence level in public transit wasn't there, and we give incredibly competitive rates. But we said, hey, don't feel uneasy about taking public transit. Just come rent a car. Here's what we're doing to keep you, and we've dropped our prices like crazy. So we're trying to push that. But basically, like every business, we had to pivot. One thing we talked about this before is I was adamant, and I think I was very likely alone in my industry. I was adamant about no salespeople get laid off here. And I brought my sales team in because they did report to me. And I said, guys, there are companies who are busier now because of COVID. Okay, you better go find them. And they're out there, I promise you. And for those of our customers who are not so busy now and they're waiting for things to come back, keep in touch. Don't become a ghost. Okay, this is where when crisis like this happens, this is who you see what people are made of. And a real quick story too from our own staff. You see what people are made of. I mean, I've talked about the dedication level, but we had people who we had to lay off just because the volume at certain locations went so low. But we had people who were laid off who still drove by the office and popped in to make sure the cars were checked in properly and were parked safely and stuff. And they weren't even getting paid. You can't teach that. You can't put a price on that. So, but we had to pivot. But something I knew I had a lot of confidence in is that because we're not airport driven, and we all know, unfortunately, the airport rental business is still like 90% down around the world. But because we're not about the airports, the stuff that we do will come back, and we'll come back. I said, guys, give it like 90 days. I'm telling you. So like I said, we had a horrible April. We had a bad May, but it was only half as bad as April. And we broke even in June. And we made some nice money comparative to last year, actually, in July. Lower revenue, lower volume, but because of all the changes we made, we were able to bring it back that quickly. Just because I knew the base of our customers, that's off airport rental world, is going to get busy again, and thankfully I was right. So,
when running a business, adaptability, the ability to pivot in relationship to a market change is I think common, right? Like, that's taught in business programs, but how does this compare? Like, in terms of the way that you might have ordinarily thought about strategic foresight for a business, how does this compare in terms of rapidity or circumstances?
And there's nothing like it. There's never been anything like this. Whenever you're adopting to search engine optimization on Google and they change their algorithm and whatever, or some kind of IT or something like, you always have weeks, maybe months to plan this and map it out and get strategic about it. And here you had days. You literally had days. When I was canceling those cars, it's not like week to week. It was day to day cancellations of thousands of, hundreds of millions of dollars just being not spent and not used. You had to act really fast. and hope you were right. And there was such a big question mark about what COVID was and where it's going in April and May. I mean, the world looked like it was coming to an end. It really did. It really did. Like everything we know is just changed, and who knows when it's ever going to come back. It felt like that. I really feel like that in April.
Yeah.
By May, the sun started to shine a little bit. You could we all kind of got a little glimpse of reality and what this was about. But fast, 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 and that's business. I mean, again, for anyone in a business stream right now, advice I would give is you cannot take your time in making decisions, especially stuff like this. You got to go with what you know, make the call. Hopefully, you're right. You're going to be wrong sometimes.
Yeah.
But you got to go. You got to go fast. You can't sit and can't have committees on all these things always. You got to just go.
Right, because even under normal circumstances, you would have the time to make a kind of data-driven decision about a market trend that you're foreseeing that's happening, and it still has a risk associated with it if you're going to make a big adjustment in terms of what your core business practice is. But then the kind of gamble that you have to take when you hunker down during the storm and point in a direction and think, okay, once this clears, we can jump over there.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, come July, I was regretting some of those car cancellations. I was like, man, I wish a couple thousand of those were still coming because business came back.
Yeah.
Our business, I was like, well, hey, I can't regret the call I made in April or in May on canceling those cars because God knows where things were going. But that was one thing I wish I could have undone. I could really use 500 more pickup trucks right now. Or whatever,
Is it something you could have predicted, or is it something you could have even been able to withstand the risk of taking the gamble on hanging on to all those cars?
No way. I wouldn't have slept if I knew there was fleet coming in those months, those hardest months. So you make do.
So I'm hearing decision making is kind of a core skill in this experience that you've had. I want to ask you about your liberal arts education. Your education is an English major, and I know you ended up doing graduate studies in creative writing. So where do you see liberal arts education in your field of work, and how are the skills that you got from that education deployed in your sector, and even in the circumstances of the pandemic?
So one quick correction, because I take pride in this. It was double major English creative writing,
right?
Because that's where I went next with my education from York. I started off at York as a business major, and I just felt like my mind wasn't just expanding to what the world had to offer, what's out there. And it was, I think, my second year I changed it over to English and creative writing because I happened to catch an elective at Vanier College in creative writing, and I just loved it. This is now I feel like I'm, blooming here. Because of my experience, I've always been a fan of people coming out of university with history, anthropology, philosophy, English. Like, business is about knowing people. And I don't think you can connect with people as well if you've just lived in like business and BCom and numbers and all this stuff your whole life, and you don't know about the Renaissance, or you don't know about, you need to connect with people. And if you don't know about the world and what's out there, you can't have, I think, really good connections with people. And business is about people and relationships. So I'm a huge fan of a liberal arts, whatever that avenue will be of undergraduate, and that's advice I give my kids. My son's almost 17, my oldest. You'll have time in graduate school to really fine tune and focus on what you want, but learn about the world because a lot of cool stuff has happened, and they're going to be reading about COVID.
Right, and when I hear about your experience adjusting during COVID, I'm hearing a lot of, I had to call people, I had to talk to people, I had to write to people. And so when you're talking about relationships, that's customers, but is that more than just customers?
It's customers, it's vendors, it's banks who are loaning you heavy nine figures to buy your fleet. It's the whole, it's 360 degrees. And there's got to be connections there with these people, because they have to know that when I'm saying, hey guys, I know, please believe me, we're different. Hertz just went bankrupt. I know, but we're not Hertz, and here's why. And you need to know, and they knew me well enough to say, yeah, Jay's making sense, and everything he's told us before has been true, and he's given us the background on this and that and that, and so we have no reason to doubt him today.
Mm.
Relationships are everything. And when things, like I said, I told my salespeople, just make sure your accounts are okay. Their kids are at home like yours. Make sure they're okay. A lot of guys on movie sets, the car rentals that they get for the movie are their own personal cars while they are making the movie. Well, if there's no production, they don't have a car. How are they doing their shopping? How are they getting the kids to school? I want you to call your accounts. Do they need a car? Just give them a car. Give it to them. I don't care. Give them the keys. Let me know when you're done. Guys, go take care of these people, because this is where people remember who was there in the worst times. And if you look at history is the best stories through history are who was there when the days were darkest.
So we're starting to get some questions from the audience. So I'm going to start to pass those over.
Sure.
Here. We've got a first question about availability of masks. So were masks available at locations for clients who might have come in and forgot?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. We, especially when the city mandated it, most cities mandated it mandatory. We had the official printout on the door. You got to wear a mask. If someone forgot it, we would say, do you have a mask? And they would say, no, we don't. And be like, can we give you one? And absolutely, that could so easily be a explosive encounter if you wanted it to be. Just like, here you go. So absolutely, yeah.
Okay. We've got another question here. This is really interesting. So did you have a continuity plan? Do you have one now? And I guess I'm a little bit curious about, like, was there one before COVID, or was it sort of concocted on the fly as the emergency was occurring?
Yes. So, and I'll thank my customers in the insurance industry on that. I want to go back about 5 or 6 years ago. We had a couple insurance companies actually insist on seeing our continuity plan and our what was that term for it again? Everything blows up plan. I forget the corporate term for it, but so we actually we had that mapped out. It was in writing. How do we get people working from home? What building do we use? We had other locations and buildings. What do we use if there's a fire? All that stuff. So we actually had a good document on paper that people were aware of and knew what was in it. And that was a great playbook for us when we had to, especially mainly getting people working from home. So yeah, we were ready. We were ready as much as we could be.
And I guess so many businesses saw the value of having that kind of foresight as well. And for all of our students in the disaster and emergency management program, I mean, your skills are in demand for sure. Having people who are thinking that way
exactly
is really valuable. Got a question here from Melissa. She says she's really enjoying your perspective. I'm a lapsed graduate now working in the automotive industry. I'm wondering if you've had any challenges working with manufacturers for fleet orders. You had mentioned pickup truck allocations.
So again, I just want to remind everyone watching today that Discount did sell to Enterprise. That was also, by the way, looming over this whole COVID thing, was that we were under contract to sell to Enterprise Rent-A-Car. We signed the deal in early December of 19. And the deal closed in September 2020. So I can only tell you what I'm hearing now about what it is, but because when I was still running Discount, it really wasn't a topic of conversation of like, oh, can I get more? If it was still August, you were living with what you got. Okay. What I do know though is that the supply chains of most car manufacturers have been severely disrupted. The latest thing you're hearing about is the chips that's really hurting car production right now. But the used car market and the new car market product is hard to get, whether you're a new car dealer, whether you're a rental company, because demand for automotive globally has been huge through COVID. I mean, one car manufacturer just read this week, 2020 was the second best year in their history from a volume standpoint. So car demand, low interest rates, people aren't spending on other things, so they're saying, "Let me get a new car," and the demand's through the roof. So car rental companies aren't always first in line to go get fleet. They want to take care of their dealers first, and then they'll take care of the fleet guys afterwards. So Fleet has been, I know, challenging to get. So the answer to that is yes, but not just for rental companies. I know it's for new car dealers as well. And I know guys who were in the used car business, of course, because that's what we did with our cars. We sold them to used car guys afterwards. And apparently there isn't a single used car lot in the country that is anywhere near the capacity they're used to. So there's shortages there.
That's so interesting. It's, I guess, another example of when there's a massive economic disruption. It's sometimes hard to predict what the outcomes are going to be 2 or 3 steps along like a supply chain. It's almost like, you hit the pool ball straight into the pile of balls, and it's hard to say where all of them are going to go as they start to scatter. So microchip manufacturing is struggling, and that has an effect on pickup truck manufacturing.
Exactly. I can share a real quick story and this helped. I forgot to mention this. This helped us through COVID. This is the one silver lining, bright spot in the darkest days of COVID. Is we had a good sense that the plants were going to shut down in America, and not to be a vulture, but whenever plants shut down, used car prices go up because the new is not coming out. So something Discount did is we sold because the exchange rate a lot of our vehicles in the States. And even in the darkest days of COVID, I had some people who didn't want to do it, but I said, keep sending the stuff to America. The borders are open. You can still export. Better to be there than in Canada. And that turned out to be a great call, because with the plants closed down and dealers not getting new product, they all went to go buy used. And here I had 6, 7, 8-month-old pickup trucks and big SUVs, and the Canadian dollar tanked like crazy. So all of a sudden I'm converting 10, 20 million US dollars a month at $1.45, $1.43. And that was huge. That was, it really, our bottom line still was bad for those few months, but it would have been much worse if that didn't happen. So that was a good call that I made a decision, said go, and that paid off nicely.
And then ultimately those kinds of decisions help a business weather the storm too, right? So I'm sure that windfall helps, settle off, other areas of the business that are struggling.
Exactly. It was just a huge bright spot. I mean, you took what you could get, and that was just I had a hunch, and my head of fleet too. We both keep a very close eye on America, of course. And I knew America wouldn't stay shut down long. I just knew they wouldn't put up with it. I lived in America long enough. They're not putting up with lockdowns long. They're going to go shopping for their pickup trucks and stuff. I said, I'm telling you, the dealers are going to be screaming for these things. And before the end of April, we were right. And we sold out of everything in like 60, 70 days. It was crazy. Thousands of vehicles.
Well, Jay, as predicted, these conversations tend to take up all the time. They're super interesting, and I really appreciate you sharing your experiences with us here, and your experiences as an alumni coming out of our creative writing and English programs. And I'm really grateful for the audience coming here and asking some questions this afternoon, but we are close to time. So I do want to let the audience know that as we're wrapping up here, we've got an upcoming session on women in leadership taking place on International Women's Day. That's March 8th from 1 o'clock to 2:30 p.m. in the afternoon. You can find the registration link in the chat just now. Divya has put that in for us. So we hope that, those of us who were here today can join us again on March 8th. And Jay, I want to thank you again for joining us, sharing your experiences of COVID-19 and the experiences of one of our graduates.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. I was honored to be asked. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye-bye.